I believe you should have two kinds of pantries in your home. The first one is your everyday pantry. That's the one you cook out of. That's the one that, you're making a meal or you're looking for a snack or whatever. The one that you shop for most often, however, is your preparedness pantry. That's the one where you have supplies ready so that you don't run out. Now, obviously, we can't do that very much with fresh food. So we do shop for fresh food a lot. But how often are you buying non-perishables, rather, that if you had it at the house, it would be fine? Maybe your family uses a lot of condiments, and making sure you always have condiments on hand. Certainly having the staples, things like olive oil, salt, and baking supplies, and sugar, and whatever. You can store those in your home. You've been a guest in my house. You've seen my preparedness pantry. It's not huge, but it's there. I encourage people to have enough on hand in prepared food that you could feed your family for 2 to 4 weeks.
2 to 4 weeks is what you're planning out?
Yeah, because if it's more than that, you've probably got bigger problems and maybe you need to leave. And here's the thing, no shade to anybody who's like, I have a whole year's worth of supplies or 2 years or whatever. Great. If you have the room for that and you can do that, that's fabulous. Where I live, I would have to give up so much of my house to be able to do that. It's not worth it.
So you're already convincing me more because of that exact point. When people talk about having like a year's worth of supplies, that's where they lose me. I'm just like, we're never going to use that. I don't know where to store it. And then, of course, there's the turnover. Well, but you also have to replace it every 5 years. So not only are you putting all the finances into that, but then you have to track it all. That's where they lose me. It's like, I have enough responsibility. I don't need to then track with the expiration dates for a year's worth of food. You're condensing it. You're saying 2 to 4 weeks. What I'm also hearing is that you're talking about foods that you do regularly use. Let's use the pasta as an example. You go through, let's say, 1 box a week.
And then when you use one, you replace it. I am a big fan of when you're shopping, it's because you're replacing what you need.
I think that's really key. This isn't like some food that you don't normally eat that you're just holding on to, but you're focused on the foods that you would normally be eating, maybe diet or specific to your health needs, and you're just maintaining those. That is great. Are you just going like first in goes to the back, and are you just rotating it like that? Like, what's your process of rotation?
Let's say mayonnaise, and your family uses about 1 jar of mayonnaise a month. So you're always going to want to have an extra jar of mayonnaise so that when you run out of mayonnaise, you know there's another one in the pantry. When you go to use that jar of mayonnaise, your very next trip to the grocery store is to add mayonnaise, but you don't need it for another month because you only use 1 jar a month. Let's say it's something that you use a little bit more often, like let's say canned beans. Maybe you eat beans twice a week. You have 10 cans of beans. If you buy more beans, the new cans go behind the old cans. So we don't shove them in the front. We always arrange it so that the new stuff goes in the back and moves its way forward.
How do you organize your pantry so that everything is visible, so that you can keep track of these numbers?
Great question. I'm not able to see everything at once just because shelves are so deep. I do try to keep things lined up. And then I also have a worksheet. So I teach a class that is called the Preparedness Pantry Masterclass. And there's worksheets in there. And I encourage you twice a year to go through and organize your pantry and look at what's in there.
And so when you're organizing it, though, are you organizing it by what's the category?
Yes. So it's like, what is it? How many do I have? And what are the dates? Are there some that getting a little tight? I need to use it because maybe it got lost in the back. And I'll confess, even in my house, that happens because I'm the one who's more finicky about that than maybe other people. Really, if you go through it twice a year, you're never going to have anything that's seriously out of date. Like I will share, I have someone that I was just talking to recently. She shared that she had been through a lot of stuff, a lot of things that happened in her life. And she was all of a sudden cleaning everything out and realized that she had a whole bunch of expired food. It had sat at the bottom of her pantry where she wasn't paying attention to it and she didn't regularly go through it. I'm not going to lie. It's a pain in the butt to rip that thing apart. It takes me a half a day, but I also know, A, I'm planning meals around what I know I need to use up quickly. And B, I know that there's nothing in there that's seriously expired or not good to eat.
What about the things that are not as easily quantifiable? So, like water. What about the categories of the food? For example, there are perishables. Like, let's say if I eat meat and I have a freezer, the electricity goes out, that meat's going to go bad. So, should I be thinking about proteins differently for my emergency kit versus my everyday?
Both really good points. So let's start with water and then we'll go to the proteins. One thing that most people don't realize is you need a gallon of water per person per day, and a pet counts as a person, by the way, in terms of having good drinkable water. Obviously, we don't drink a gallon a day, but then that gives you some for cooking and that sort of thing. It's really hard to store that much water. I encourage people to try to store 3 to 5 days worth if you can. And I will share that the 2.5 gallon containers that they sell at the grocery store don't work. Over time, they split, those seams give way. And the way I know this is at one point I had stocked up a whole bunch of water. And then one day I went into the closet and I noticed that the carpet was wet. Those seams don't hold up. So you need to have something that is a good, sturdy, water-safe container. I happen to be a fan of something called an aquatainer. They look like gasoline containers, but they're blue, and you put water in that. So you can store water in that.
Is it aluminum or what is it?
No, it's plastic. It's food grade plastic. But here's the thing, you got to make a choice here. You're like me, and typically we prefer glass and metal and all of that kind of stuff. But glass and water is really hard because if it slips, it's going to shatter and break. And metal is going to taint the water. The plastic won't. However, beyond that 3 to 5 days, that's where we look at what are our secondary options. For example, you can get a Lifestraw, and I do have one for everybody in the house. You could basically drink swamp water through that thing, and it cleans out 99.9999% of the bacteria and those kinds of things. If you have a water source nearby that you could potentially go get water from and bring it to your house. If you don't have that, are there other sources? One of the biggest ones I get all the time is people who are like, oh, I have a swimming pool. Well, that's great, but there's all kinds of chemicals in there that you should not be drinking. So then you have to have some kind of a filter, whether it's a Berkey or, one of those other brands that will filter out the things that are not going to be supportive for you. But looking at what is your secondary plan, having the 3 to 5 days and then having the Lifestraw. One of the things I like about a Lifestraw as well is those are great if you have to leave because you can tuck them in your bug out bag and take them with you because you don't know what the water situation is going to be where you're going. I will also share that there are water saving habits that you want to get into. And I do encourage families to let's play blackout, oh, gee, water's out, power's out. What are we going to do? We're going to have dinner by candlelight. We're going to maybe cook differently. And then we're going to think about the water that we're using. For example, a bowl in the sink to wash your hands, or how do we reduce our water usage so that we're not using as much because we can't turn on the faucet today.
This is just all stressing me out.
My goal is not to stress you out with this because the other thing is, James, every single change that you make is one thing more that you're doing to protect your family. So even
Right.
if all you do is change how you store food in your pantry and make sure that you're storing at least some water, that's great. You don't have to do more than that.
If you enjoyed the clip from the podcast, make sure to check out the next video up here or head over to watch the full episode down here. And before you go, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Come on. Yeah, thanks for watching.